Today on 1% Better.
We have these outside forces, and for us, it's the 420 teams in Division III baseball. But those teams allow us to be our best, because if there is no competition, we'll never get to our best. If all we do is practice and we never see anything outside of our walls, then that's all we'll ever be.
This is the show dedicated to helping you improve your mindset, language, and behavior. Inspiring stories, practical advice, and damn good conversations. Here's your host, Joe Ferraro.
Hello and welcome to 1% Better. Episode 166 is here. Year 4 of 1% Better. July 1st, 2017. And now we enter 2021. Thank you so very much for being a part of it. My guest today is a tremendous leader. If you want to talk culture, and I don't mean the buzzwords, if you want to talk leadership, if you want to talk humility, staying on the path, being consistent, you're going to want to listen to my conversation today with Mike Deegan. He's become a friend and a mentor, working side by side in different paths. He went down the college baseball coaching road that I once traveled, and he's one of the best in the country. But he has so much to offer in terms of what he's learned, CocaCola, Marietta College in Ohio, now Denison University. He's doing leadership work. He has a great course out. We'll get to all that. But I should mention this conversation with Mike Deegan, available on YouTube. That's right. I did my hair. I did not dress up very much because I've realized, guys, it doesn't matter that much how you look on camera. It doesn't matter if everything's perfect. We talk about getting 1% better. And so many people have asked, can I find the show on YouTube? And the answer is yes. In 2021, you can watch it on YouTube. That will be linked in the show notes. Or you can listen in your car, on your treadmill, or when you're going about your business. But I want to wish you a Happy New Year. I want to wish you alignment with your goals and visions for 2021. Big things happening in the world of damn good conversations and 1% better. But let's get to the conversation with Mike today. I would love to hear your thoughts after this one. He's an amazing follow on Twitter and just someone who's steady, right? Consistent, not flashy, getting the job done day after day. And what a way to look at 2021, right? We've plodded through 2020. We made it through. So much accomplished in spite of all the things around us. And then you look up and you see people like Deegan in your life. You have people like him. And you can look to see in him those that you admire. I know you're going to love this conversation. I think it's a great way to start off 2021. And as always, you know where to find me on social media, at Ferraro on Air, Instagram, and Twitter. Getting a little bit more active on LinkedIn. I don't know. Maybe there's something to this. Someone recently told me to get on Facebook. I know. I can hear you saying don't do it. But what I can guarantee you is that week after week, I'm going to bring you this podcast. I'm enjoying it so very much, and that's because of you and the people I get to talk to. So without any further delay, enjoy my conversation with Mike Deegan. Denison head coach, leadership expert, course creator, Mike Deegan. Welcome to the show.
Joe, thanks for having me on, man. Long time coming, so great to sit down and talk.
Oh, my God. So much to get to today. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
I don't know. You don't strike me as a resolution guy, but we'll get to that. I want to jump right in head first here. You've once upon a time said you'd love to be in my classroom for a minute or two. I'm going to throw you right into my classroom with a game we play. Little icebreaker, human highlighter it's called, Mike. And this is a rapid fire section where we get to know our people in 60 seconds. So first thing that comes to your mind, high pressure, high reward. Here we go. Coffee or tea?
Neither.
Ooh, dream travel destination?
New Zealand.
Wow. Favorite food?
Steak.
Favorite genre of music?
Hip hop and R&B.
That explains the dogs' names, I think. What is your secret talent?
Curiosity.
Wow. What is something that you're afraid of?
Being judged.
What's your relationship to roller coasters?
I'm motion sensitive, so I have a fear. As I've gotten older, there's a fear. There's a fear of roller coasters.
Coach the bases or in the dugout?
I've done both. Presently, I'm on the bases. I'm back on the bases again.
How's your sign game?
Phenomenal. But we're adapting. We may be going to a different system this year. So, yes.
Overrated or underrated? Derek Jeter.
Underrated.
Confidence.
Critical to success.
Name 3 types of clouds.
Can't do it.
Mike Deegan, that's an excellent job on Human Highlighter, man. You didn't see that coming, did you?
No, I didn't. I did not. And the clouds completely tripped me up. I could have made something up, but that would have killed all credibility today because I don't think I would have got anywhere near the right words. And
I appreciate that because, all kidding aside, most of the things I do in my classroom walk the line between silly and serious. We go back and forth. You could imagine at first kids don't want to do a game like that. And then all of a sudden, they know it's okay to fail. They know that you can just be as creative as you want with an answer. So you did awesome, man.
Appreciate it.
1995, I applied to 11 schools. I didn't really reach too far outside the box. In fact, the hardest school that I applied to, I won't mention by name, rejected me. The envelope was as thin as litmus paper. We don't talk about that school. But one of the schools that said yes was Marietta College. And I saw that they had a leadership program. And it would have been 1995. Joe Ferraro heading to Marietta College. What did I miss out on by saying no thank you there to
man? Well, we would have been buddies. We would have been buddies. That's the first thing. But no, I think when I think about my time at Marietta, and I know you well enough from our conversations and from listening in for all these years, that I think you have a pretty good idea of some of the things you value. So I'll just start there with some of the things that I value, and I think it would probably play with you. First, I would say the people. There were just phenomenal people at the college. And then I think even more so, I wouldn't say even more so, I would say equally would be in the community and people who would truly give you the shirt off their back. And I think for me looking in, I got to see what servant leadership looked like and what a gift that is. And then the second thing I would say, knowing your affinity with baseball and your past with baseball, you would have found a way toward the baseball team, whether that would be as a player, as a coach, in the media or whatever. And I think there you would have had a sneak peek and a look under the hood of an elite level organization. And it's a throwback place where baseball was such a big deal still, big crowds and big games. And you would have been playing or working under a legend with Coach Shalley. So I think for all those things, you would have just fallen in love with the community and Marietta College and the baseball program like a lot of us do.
Yeah, I love that answer. I don't look back with regret, but it is a little place that I always was curious about. A kid from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, applying to Marietta is probably not too common, although I know you have Pennsylvania roots. We'll get to all those. You said you got to see up close what servant leadership is. Well, what can you share about what it actually is?
Yeah, I think the example, the real life example in Marietta would be just, I don't care if they were doctors and lawyers or pillars of the community. I mean, here's a good example. When we moved from an apartment to a house, I was out of town, and I was out of town with a baseball game, and a bunch of people from the community got together to help my wife move stuff into our house. So, and nobody likes to move, right? Like I always tell my friends, hey, if you need anybody to help you moving, call somebody else. But that's just a good example of Marietta. And, I can give a long list of things where, a former coach, a coach at another program got hit in the mouth and he didn't have insurance during a practice. And one of the local dentists, Dr. Fry, now a good friend of mine, actually did all the dental work for free. So it's just people who care. They care a lot. They serve a lot. They lead from the front, and just really, really good people. So I think that's how what I learned there.
You're kind of describing a movie, though, right? Like this is like an unbelievable setting in the middle of America.
It kind of is. I think I always said Marietta is a unique place where it does have those old school values, and it's progressive in its own ways, but it has those old school values that we love.
And that's one of the pillars of your foundation. But another one is Coca-Cola. So in doing the research and in talking to you, you worked for one of the most famous, successful companies of all time. What lessons did you learn there that have informed your current practice?
When I was at Coca-Cola, I was 22 years old. So I was just like a lot of a lot of us, I graduated college, and I shouldn't say a lot of us. I know I was one of a few of my friends with the same boat that didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea. So I got a job with Coke and got a part of their sales force, and I was an account manager. And I had some success. I did okay. Like I was hitting numbers, I was growing, I was developing. But I'll be honest, it just, there was something about it that was missing. And I don't want to say those are dark times, because it wasn't dark, but I knew right away that Coke wasn't for me. And so I think what I learned there, Joe, is that no matter what the external success could be, whether that's, a good salary, a bonus, unless you are living a life that's aligned with your path and the values and some of those bigger picture things, I don't know if you can enjoy it, because I didn't. And so in that time, I started taking classes at Duquesne University. So 1 year in at Coke, I was working, 50, 55 hours a week. And then I started taking classes at Duquesne University. And my idea was that I wanted to get into counseling education, be a guidance counselor and coach. I'm from an area where there were a lot of underserved and underprivileged kids and so much talent. And, not just in sports, but in the arts and school. And I don't know if they could see beyond, our little town. And I always thought if someone could just give them a telescope and show them what's out there, like how beautiful that would be. And so I was working at Coke 5 days a week. It would be like 6 to 4:30. And then on Saturdays, I was taking classes at Duquesne. I would go in there grossly underprepared. But it tied me back to, I think, what I didn't know at the time, but I think it's in my core now. I feel it. It's that need to serve. It is that need to help others. And I don't say that with a pat on the back, but I need to be helping people in order for myself to feel fulfilled. So one, I learned at Coke that external success doesn't mean a whole lot. Two, I learned that you have to be aligned with something bigger than yourself. Like that's something that's really important to me. And then the third thing was I connected with my servant mentality and a part of who I am. So while it was a tough time, I think we learned that a lot of those tough times are what actually make things beautiful in the end.
Talk to me about what you mean when you say external success isn't your highest priority.
Well, I think we all are guilty in some level, and me as well. I mean, we chase wins and losses, we chase salaries, we chase profit and margin statements, we chase stock prices. And so those things that are defined by others, right? And so at Coke, it was, you hit your goals this quarter, then you hit them again next quarter, and you do it again. And so, you get a bonus for that, and they reward you. And if you win a lot of games, people heap praise upon you. But you find that that's very fleeting, and it's very, you don't control a lot of those external success. I mean, you could have a downturn in the market. You could be doing everything right sales-wise. There's a downturn in the market, and you don't hit your goals. Now, am I as good of a salesperson as I was before because of the result? And so that's what I had to learn and reconnect with. And like I said, it is still something I battle. Every coach, every leader, every competitive person struggles with that dance between internal and external success. But the people I admire the most and the person I'm trying to be is someone who focuses on those internal drivers.
No doubt some of those drivers were formed at the 8th Ward and Park and Dewey. You can find more at CoachMikeDeegan.com. Mike, 2 Hall of Fames that I found in the research. Are you hiding a 3rd Hall of Fame? 2 Hall of Fames, and all I see is you leading with humility.
There's a 3rd. I have a high school Hall of Fame, college, and then the Washington County chapter for the Pennsylvania.
I set you up for that because I got a problem with a statement I found in your course. The whole course, which I just want to brag about, clearlearn.com. We're going to spend a good amount of time on it. It's unbelievable. But here's the problem I had. At one point during the course, you said, and I quote, "I am by no means an expert or a guru on this leadership stuff." Now, I set you up, 3 Hall of Fames, CocaCola employee, turned the program around at Denison, things you'll never hear a coach say about himself. And I literally looked at the screen and go, but he is an expert on leadership. Now, maybe you don't like the guru word, but he is an expert on leadership. I said that to my right in my chair over there. And I'm like, this guy knows leadership and he's studying it and he's walking it. What is it about the accomplishments you've had and the study that you put in that for some reason still won't let you get out there and tell people about it?
Well, first, thank you. Thanks for bringing those things up. I am proud of some of the things that I've accomplished and some of the things I'm working on. I think for me, I was driven at a very young age, the importance of being humble. I think I had a very a moment. I never even thought about this, Joe, until you just mentioned that. But I scored a touchdown when I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I got to the end zone. I threw my hands up. If you're listening, you won't be able to see it, but I threw my hands up. And after the game, my dad said to me, I promise you, if I ever see you do that again, I will walk on the field, take you by your ear, and I will embarrass you in front of all your friends. And so it was from a very good place, right? So it was just, it wasn't about me; it was about the team, and so, but that, and then I'll fast forward a minute. I remember hitting a home run. I wasn't a home run hitter; hit a big home run in the regional, biggest hit of my life. And I remember rounding first base, and I threw my hand up like a little quick fist pump. And I remember throwing my hand back down immediately because I bet my dad may be watching that. So, and then when I told him that he's no longer with us, but when I told him that, he laughed. He's like, "Oh, I wouldn't have cared about that." But I think that humility was driven into me from a very young age. The fact that it is about others, and so I think humility is probably the most important trait you can possibly have, because that keeps you curious, that keeps you learning, that keeps you growing. Now, when I think of myself, I don't think of the humility as being a distraction or that may limit my growth. I don't. But what I do think about, and I get this from Michael Port. Michael Port has a great book. It's about performance and leadership. But anyways, he talks about the performance paradox, where you have this ability to have to be out there in front of others, but then you're going to be judged. And I think what I need to overcome is the fear of critics, the fear of failure, the fear of other people's opinions. I think that's what limits me more than the humility. The humility keeps me learning and growing, Joe. It's just the other side of things, and having to say, you know what, I'm getting more comfortable in my own skin. This is who I am. I'm going to try to share things. I'm going to put them out there. And you know what, when you do that, like I want all the things that come along with that. I care about my ideas being heard. I care about helping others. But there is another side to that, where you are going to be judged, criticized, and people are going to have opinions. So you can't have it both ways if you want to do this. So now is trying to figure out, okay, is my why strong enough? Is my mission clear enough to me in order to overcome some of those obstacles?
Oh, what a beautiful anecdote about Dad. Rest in peace. And you write about a lot of those kind of stories and let it rip. Life lessons learned through sport. We'll get to some of those for sure. I'm wondering, now that you mentioned that story with Dad, how does that show up on the baseball field with Mike Deegan as coach? What's the language you're sharing with your players that may or may not have come from Dad? Maybe you'll do some things differently. How do you talk to your players about humility?
I think we're a very low frills program, and I think people listen now. You may, once again, here's me worry about others. They go, "Oh wait, this guy, he writes books. He's on podcasts. How humble is he, right?" But I think what you'll see is a very, very low frills. I mean, we really are concerned with ourselves, and that's a little bit of coach speak. But I think that if you were to come watch us play, and other baseball people were to come watch us play, you would see a team that does things the right ways. And I think we do. We celebrate others' success. It's not about any one individual. And I think, one, that's from Dad, and then two, that's also from what I learned at Marietta and being a part of other high-level organizations. Like, and Joe, I know your success at the high school level, and the state and the Legion level. You understand this. Like, it's not about the 3-hitter. It's not about the number one pitcher. It's about the person who may come in and pinch run and grab a big bag, or the defensive replacement who goes in and makes a play. And so I think it gets twisted where a lot of people think sports is like all about, like, oh, how many points did you have, or how did you go 3 for 4 today? We're at high level, high performance environments. Like, nobody even cares about who the star is. It's who are we together. So I think Dad kind of instilled it from me to not be the center of attention, and our team is that way. Like, I think you would notice that. But then also, it's also about us trying to do this and win together, and that's the higher level aspect of sports.
Let me try to connect 3 dots here. In the book, you have a chapter about trying to get young people to envision success 10 years from now. In the course, you talk about 4 pillars, one of which is Mudita, and it seems to show up in your program as well. An incredibly powerful word that maybe some listeners don't know about. Maybe you can define it for us, and then more importantly, how can you possibly get an 18-year-old young man to buy into that when his whole life he's been the star, or he's been someone that's really in the center of the action?
Well, so first I want to give credit to how Mudita came into my life. a guy named Pat Murphy. Pat Murphy's the head softball coach at Alabama. You want to talk about humility and a lifelong learner, it's Pat Murphy. And just a quick story about Pat. He's an Alabama softball coach, national champion, one of the most known and well-respected coaches in softball. He comes to Denison last year, 2019, before the pandemic, comes to Denison to spend 2 days with our program. Think about that. Like who on his own dime, he paid for it, paid his own way, came and just spent time with us. So that's Pat Murphy. But anyways, Pat had read some of my newsletters, and I connect with him at the ABCA convention. Shout out, that's coming up here this Thursday for all the baseball coaches that are out there. And so he wanted to connect, and we talked. We had a great conversation. I said, Murph, give me one thing that you're doing in your program that we need to do. And he said, have you read the book Help the Helper? And I said, no, I haven't. And he said, well, read the book. And in there's a phrase called Mudita. He goes, and that's our program. And he goes, there's also a video. So anyone who wants the shortcut to this, you could Google anatomy of a teammate and you'll see Mudita in action. So Google anatomy of a teammate and you'll see it. But Mudita is vicarious joy. Can I be happy for another success as if it's my own? So vicarious joy, can I be happy for another success as if it's my own? And so that to me is why, Jill, I can sit across any family, and we are, the profile of our players went up, and they're around good programs. But I can say that you ought to consider Denison because of that, because here, like, we try to celebrate other success. And what you mentioned, yes, it is unnatural. All the pillars of our program are uncommon. We have no interest in being common, but I really believe in my heart that is more than a baseball thing. Like, if your neighbor gets a new car, are you happy for them? Or are you going, I bet your parents gave you money for that car? If you can just celebrate others, it's amazing how it goes around and comes around. And so I think that is one of the founding pillars of our program, is something we believe wholeheartedly in.
That's strong. I caught two things in there for sure. First, Coach Murphy, lifelong learner, putting his money where his mouth is, right? Being a person of action, not being concerned with status roles. But then there was something else you said. You asked Coach Murphy a question. What's one thing in your program that we should be doing? It strikes me, Mike, as that's a tool. I talk a lot about the value of good questions. That's an amazing question that I think people can put into action right away. Do you have any other gems that are hiding somewhere? What's one thing that you're doing in your business that we should be doing? What's one thing in our program? What kind of other questions are you asking that have really pulled the lever for you over the years?
I can't say that honestly is my go-to. And that doesn't go just with Coach Murphy. That's with the custodian in our building who may have who I noticed that has an expertise, right? Or just an everyday conversation. What's one thing you're doing in your classroom that I need to do? Like, if you open up this world of curiosity, that's how you get to some special things. But I think that like my secret sauce, I don't have, like, it wouldn't be a secret sauce, but what I try to do is I try to listen a heck of a lot more than I speak. And so there's all the cliches and never be the smartest person in the room, but I go into every interaction. I hope not to talk a lot. I know what I know, right? Like, I know what I know. And so I want to know what you have to know. So I think if you can encounter every conversation in that manner of, like, this is my opportunity to learn. And honestly, Joe, it's tough for me to shut that down. And that can be a lot for people, I think, because if you have a conversation with me, I'm not going to talk about, the semifinal games last night in football. I mean, I may banter a little bit, but I really want to get down to it. Like, time's precious to me, and I'm there to learn. And so, but that's how I approach almost every interaction with everybody, is like, all right, what can I learn from this conversation?
Yeah, you're talking about a mindset there, and then that question is like a keystone question. I'm going to put that curiosity into action here. Page 59 from your book is one of my favorite pages, and you write, this is about you building Denison with your staff, with your players. You developed a 5-year goal to swing from the bottom 40%. In 10 years, we want to be in the top 6% of programs nationwide. And then you throw this little devilish parentheses in. You say, I won't bore you with the details of 6%, but it has meaning. Well, you don't have to go too deep, because I know that, you're careful about things. But what I'm trying to figure out is a little bit about that rubric. You're looking at 420 plus teams. You want to be in the top 25 someday. But how did you measure that? How did you begin to do that granular process? Because, Mike, it aligns with what you talk about in the course of facing reality and getting clarity. And I think there's tremendous alignment in your work. I want people listening to be able to say, how do we begin that process and how can I show up in my work?
Well, I think the first thing, Joe, is you do have to have a starting point, and that was the bottom 40%. That's kind of what we had. We did the work. We ranked out all 420 programs in Division III baseball, and by that I don't want to sit here and say we like moved like 389 to 388. We started putting teams in buckets, right? And it was more program based than it was year in and year out. Like, so, we've been a top 25 team now for a couple, 2 or 3 years, I would say pretty consistently, but I still don't think we're a top 25 program yet. I don't we're on that, we're knocking, but we're not quite there to be a program that does it. So I think but you have to have an idea of where you're starting and then where you want to go. And that vision has to be very clear and crisp and compelling. And then from there, you can start sharing that vision. And what's beautiful then is you start attracting the people into your organization, and then you deploy those people toward working toward the shared vision that we all have in common. So for us, in 5 years, we wanted to be in the top 20%, which we thought was the top 75 teams in the country that we felt year in and year out would be in the national tournament. And so the last 2 years, we've been in the national tournament. So we're on that path. The top 25 teams, and once again, if you want to use a college football analogy, it's different. Like college football has kind of separated itself, where Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama are in the semifinals, and then you sprinkle in Notre Dame or Oklahoma or whatever. Like you can kind of put like maybe 8 teams that are really competing for it. At our level, national champions are really hard to come by. Like at Marietta, we won back to back in 11 and 12, but that doesn't happen very often at all. So we want to be one of those 25 teams, and that's what that would be, roughly 25 teams who are in consideration for a national title every year in and year out. So that's kind of the thought for us. Could we move that needle? And I think what you mentioned earlier was, well, how do you get kids to buy into that? Like, especially when we first started. Well, I think I'll go back to where I originally began this thing. When you can open up the world to people, that it's not about you, like it's your team, like the sun's shining on your team right now. But once the sun moves off you, and it will, like then you still care about those teams behind you. And that was the beauty of Marietta. Like when you played at Marietta, like you had 40 years of people that were pulling for you. And so like that was, I always say, Joe, the proudest moment of my career was when we won the conference tournament last year, or whatever it was, 19. And I had alumni calling saying, we did it. So they were no longer on the team, but they said, we did it, coach. We did it. We finally did it. That's when I knew that we had something, because it wasn't about that team. Like it was about those teams from 2014 and 15 who had to struggle, had to go through all the fighting, but we're seeing the benefits of it now. And we talk to our current team about it ad nauseum, that the things that the top 20 rankings and all the things that we get now have nothing to do with this group. It has everything to do with the people that have come before us. So in a nutshell, that's the top 6%.
People find this conversation first week out of the gate, new year, 2021. Most people feel we never needed a new year more than this. But then they're going to go tell their vision of fitness or health or wealth or prosperity to people around them. And I'm wondering if when you shared your vision, when you confronted the reality, face reality, as you said it, do you remember any conversations with people who laughed at you, who said, there's no chance we can do this? Because I want people to be insulated behind that.
Absolutely. You hear it all the time. I had that same conversation. It's a little bit more cleaned up now. I have better words behind it. But I spoke at at a banquet in my first or second year, and I mentioned this, that we have a 10-year plan. We're going to get there. And the guy said, "Coach, with all due respect, how are you going to keep kids to buy into this?" He said it, and I did. And what I just answered to you was my response now after reflecting on that question. So you hear it all the time, and I commend anybody right now as a start of a new year who's trying to make some changes. I know it's become in vogue to make fun of things like, oh, resolutions don't stick, or you see people in the gym. This year will be a little bit differently, but my gym's crowded now. Wait 2 weeks and all these people will be out of here. Like, I'm the opposite of that. I think the new year can be a great starting point. It can be your opportunity to face reality, right? It really can. So if you have a mission and people are going to laugh, like that's, going back to what we talked about with sharing and things, like critics are always going to be there. You just can't worry about it. I've learned that the people that I truly value are pulling for me. I mean, really pulling for me. And so same thing for anybody here that's on a fitness journey or a career path change. Like, people like myself and other like people that are in the arena trying to do those things are pulling for you, and so are the ones that are closest to you. So forget everybody else. Who cares about them?
Nothing ever really positive comes after the phrase "with all due respect."
Did I go there?
No, that you said someone said to you,
Yeah.
Coach. With all due
Yeah,
respect,
yeah.
people,
Yeah, he did. Yeah. That next thing is never going to be very respectful, whatever they say, right?
Now let's talk about the course. I know that. Well, let me ask a better question. Did you ever imagine leading a course, clearlearn.com? I mean, talk about a professional looking site, resources behind it, proper lighting on you, Coach.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever imagine?
No, I didn't, Joe. I don't know what I imagined. I imagined that things have started kind of building up in my life. Like I mentioned my Coke years where I found that I needed to help and serve. I needed to be aligned with something bigger than myself. Then I went to Marietta and I got that look of championships and being a champion. And in that time as well, my obsession with continual improvement and growth began. So in 2007, I heard a speech at the ABCA by a guy named Pat Williams, and he talked about reading. And he said, if you read a book a week for 10 years, you're going to read 500 books and you'll become an expert in it. And I just started like that, like a light bulb went off in me. So like you go back to 2007 now, like I have the years behind me, right? So you start just that process of growth and wanting to serve and learning has kind of manifested itself to now where this alignment has occurred where you write a book, you start getting some other opportunities, and that's what this is. So no, it's not something I dreamed. Writing a book is something I thought I would never do. I didn't have that on my list, but I do think it's a natural progression of how things are kind of evolving and lining up in my life right now.
And I recall one of our first conversations. I was in my basement and I was talking to you, and I remember you mentioning going and attending a Tony Robbins seminar.
Yeah, 2015.
So the reason I bring that up is because you can't just have a vision. You can't just say it'd be cool to write a book. You invested dollars and time and resources along the way, whether it be reading a book or going to see one of the world's best speakers. That's something to kind of underline for people, isn't it? That you have to do things. You have to take massive action, as you say in the course.
Yeah, without a doubt, and that's a phrase from Tony Robbins, the massive action. We call it "win the day," but that's a Robbins stolen right from his playbook. 2015, we had a lot of our we had a majority of our team coming back, and we had a really poor year. And I talk about that in the course and in the book, and so I was at that moment where you go, all right, do we want to just, do I just want to be a coach and just do as good a job as I can? Or do I want to make some changes? And I had always listened to Tony and on audio. And so I said, we're going to invest. My friend Chad Spence and I, who's now a business partner of mine, went out to Chicago, and it was the most uncomfortable 3 days of my life. You're dancing, you're giving massages to people. Like you're not eating. Like you go in there at 8 a.m, you finish at midnight or whatever. And you don't leave for dinner. It's cold. It's just but I left there and people can say it's hokey or whatever, but it gives you strategic time to think is what it does. It shakes you up a little bit. It rewires you, but then it gives you and provides strategic time to think about how you want to move forward. And so you're right. You're still thinking, but at some point you have to put one foot in front of the other. And for me, learning, growth, that's really easy for me. There's an obsession there. So I do that. But I think putting one foot in front of the other, as far as hitting send on a newsletter, promoting a course, like those things are really hard for me. But that's where I go, okay, if I want to make a difference, once that they go back to that paradox, if I want to do that, then I have to do these steps in order to make that happen.
You and Chad and others have put some dollars behind this project, and it shows up, man. It I guess minus the massages, is this course something that you're hoping shakes people up?
Yeah, when I think about the course, I think one, there has to be a readiness component because, I said in there and we pushed on it a little bit and I appreciate it, but I'm not a guru. Like I'm not someone like you're not going to take this course and you're not going to go, oh my gosh, here's the answers. But it's that strategic platform. We're so busy now, right? We're so busy. We think about all the things we have to do. and just the ability to take some time and to think about yourself, your company, your team. Like, to me, that's where it's really powerful. And, there's questions in there that force you to reflect. Because I always say reflection is going to lead to awareness, first of yourself, of things that you want, and then awareness of others, right? And then you can start telling your story and then getting to a vision and aligning people behind that vision. But if you never take time to reflect, and I'm amazed at how few people do that, and I say that out of all respect, because there is sometimes we're on the hamster wheel of life. We're just churning, but we don't take that time, and success leaves clues. And if you look around, some of the most influential people in the world, the Bill Gates, Bill Gates takes a think week, where he takes a week and does nothing but reads and writes. So if they're doing it, we've got to create some time. So I think that's what this course can do. It's not overbearing. It's not me telling you what to do. It's me hopefully guiding you, and maybe just giving you a little pull into thinking about yourself and what you want to do. And then from there, it's up to you to try to create what you want, whether that's in an organization or in your personal life.
And one of the questions that you ask people to think about, I've plucked here for us. I'm going to ask this to listeners and then have you answer it. You ask, is there a topic or area of interest that you can't stop thinking or talking about, sometimes to the point of annoying others around you? And you say to the audience who takes the course, what is that for you? People listening, I had an answer immediately. I knew it for sure.
Can I answer yours?
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's conversations, right? Or questions?
Yeah, I think conversations with an emphasis on one of the great tools being questions, which is weird to talk about while we're having one. But
right.
The truth is, we've talked about this. Unlocking conversations with great questions and listening is something that I think has an exponential return. So that's my answer. I mean, it's noodling at me all year, and I'm not slowing down in 21. I think people listening have to find theirs. What's that for you?
It's high performance organizations. It's people who are doing the best job they possibly can with the resources they have in front of them. The ones that are able to have the gap between their best performance and their worst performance be so small. And so to me, it's that high performance space, that culture, leadership, like that's what I just can't get enough of. And, I say it in that question that you just read, but I'm really bad to watch a football game with or a baseball game with, because while people are cheering the play, I tweeted yesterday, I want to know what Saban's saying what's he saying there and does he really, when Harris hurdles the guy from Notre Dame, is Saban really mad, or is that a little bit of a show? But I can just stay on that. I'll miss the next 10 minutes of the game because I want to know what he's saying. I'm watching the press conference. I'm watching how business leaders are galvanizing their group. So that's the area of my life where I just can't get enough of. When I go on vacation, I don't really have hobbies. I don't golf. I don't ski. I have my family, and I have baseball, and I have this, and when I go on vacation, I want to read. That's my opportunity to consume more. So I guess that's, I think, how maybe you're onto something. Because I think that idea, my last thing there, Joe, is I think the idea of burnout, I think when you burn out, it's typically because you're not doing something you really love. You hear about kids in sports a lot of times, they burn out. Well, a lot of times that may have been their parents trying to drive something that really wasn't their kids. That's not me being critical of parents. I just think that sometimes can be it. Because when you love what you're doing, you almost can't stop. And you have to guard against the people that are around you, because they may not match that passion. So I always my last thing is it's continuous improvement for me. And that can be really hard on those around you. My wife, the coaching staff, the players, because I think we stink all the time. And I have to watch that, because it can be a bad mindset as well.
So now I want to ask about objectivity, because I'm wondering if someone like you says, I'm obsessed with high performance, and you see Saban, literally yelling at a player after one of the great looking plays of all time. And then you might see a PJ Fleck on that same exact play, physically hugging and jumping on top of the player's shoulders. If I inserted an avatar of Mike Deegan into a room to watch those two work, what's going through your mind as you watch these completely different styles of high performance leadership?
That's what I've fallen in love with is the alignment. And I think that's where I'm getting closer in my life, right? You gave a great example. PJ Fleck, Nick Saban, almost complete opposites, right? At least appear to be. Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, Popovich, Steve Kerr. You can kind of do these things, right? Where what I've learned is that these people have done the hard work, kind of going back to the course, and that's not a plug for the course, but they've reflected enough that they have the awareness to know who they are. And then now they have the freedom to be exactly who they are. And so, well, PJ Fleck may not have liked that hurdle as well. Maybe he thinks that's too big of risk for him. He may have hugged him in the moment. And then the next day, his style may have been to go, hey, let's watch this film, big fella. Like, I love what you did. That was the most exciting play that I've seen all year. But here's what I'm afraid of. This could happen. So that may be his approach. Where Saban's is to put on the show right there. And then he may go home that night and go to his wife, oh my gosh, that was the best play I've ever seen in my life. So, but they know who they are. They embrace it. They lean into it. And so I think once you find your voice, once you find who you are, that's when the special starts coming out, because then you're never pretending. You're just always being you. And what a powerful, and forget about success, but think about happiness and fulfillment. Like, think how cool that is. Like, when you can just show up and be yourself, man, is that special.
So are you saying that you're able to look at that and not say you have a preference to a style?
Oh, you're asking me more. I apologize. I would say I'm a hybrid there between that. Like, I'm learning. We won the World Series in 2011, I think it was, and we got done, and someone left a bucket of balls there, and I was like griping, hey, who's gonna get the balls? And one of my friends was at the game. He leaned over the railing and said, did we just win a national championship, or like am I because I was already in, hey, we gotta get moving. And so there's always that Saban in me, and I'm not comparing myself to Nick Saban, where I am the guy that after the game is making a list of the things that need to be done for the rest of the week, and I am that guy. But I'm also realizing the importance of celebrating moments and enjoying moments. And so I've come to grips that, like, yeah, you got to just lean into that experience. You work really hard for these things, like, you want to enjoy them. So I would say I'm a cross in between. My natural would probably be more Saban, like that's where my default would be. But I'm going, I got to get back to the middle here a little bit.
There was a line that I uncovered in preparing for our talk that one of the media guys at Denison. Please pass along my kudos, man. He did an unbelievable job. I wish I had his name. He was interviewing you, and you said something where the kids have worked hard. They really have worked hard. And you caught yourself and said, that's not easy for me to say. And I immediately made a note of that. I said, wait, I got to ask Mike about that, because for some people, and I'll give you myself as an example, I've started doing some walking on the treadmill, and I'm proud of what I'm doing, but like, it's basically a warm up for what fit people are doing. And I realize that. Is there something about your rubric for evaluating hard work that's a little different?
Absolutely. I think that what you caught there, that's a great catch. Craig Hicks, our SID, I'm sure he was involved for that, if nothing else, or Brandon Morgan. Those two people are great at Denison. But there's no doubt I have a high standard of myself, and I think that's important. Like, it's a high standard that begins with me. Our coaching staff, like, we're a staff that we don't blame players, like which once again can be exhausting, because we don't. I always say, like, every average coach and every average program complains about how soft their kids are, or how whatever, this or that. I'm like, no, we coach them, we recruit them. Let's figure this out together. So the standard is high for all of us. But then the same thing with our players. We do demand a lot, and we do, we want to try to be in that top 5 or 1%. So what does hard work look like to a top 5 or 1%? That's different than being even good, right? Even being like somewhat of a hard worker. So when you have that high standard, it's tough to give those kind of compliments. But once again, like that, what you heard there is probably my internal struggle to be a little bit more, heap a little bit more praise and can give some more pats on the back. I need to do that in order to be a more effective coach and leader.
Do you, as a tactical piece, do you point out examples in your program that exemplify hard work? Do you sometimes point out things where you fell short? Do you use both of those tools?
Yeah, and I once again, it's intentional, and we really try to catch them doing good, and that's a common phrase, but we really do. We try to, we'll do it in like short, brief meetings. Sometimes I'll say, who has somebody that they want to brag on. And they'll say, and so someone will say, hey, Johnny, we noticed him down here hitting, 5 days a week on his own prior to practice. And so they'll do that. So you're trying to encourage the behaviors you want through positive affirmations. So I think that's how we do. We try to much more, and especially in a group setting, to do it in a positive light.
Clearlearn.com, I think what's awesome about it is you go there, you see the production value immediately, you see the trailer, and immediately you know if the course is for you. I took it, loved it. The way I took it was my phone with no alerts right next to me taking notes in the Notes app. I recommend that, or a nice notebook. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. I'm really excited for you, Coach, and see what it looks like in 2021. Last section of the conversation, I want to bounce around a little bit, maybe some quicker questions, quicker answers to cover so many things I want to ask you. Meetings. I love meetings, but I only love them when they have a purpose, when they have some juice to them. What's your temperature gauge on what meetings are for you?
Meetings, I write about this in the book, but they're everything for us. For me, like they're my World Series. Like I almost feel like every meeting is of that kind of standard and of that kind of value. I always laugh at people that ask on a game day, like, "Hey, what do you guys need today?" I'm like, "No, we won this in January. Like this is done." And so meetings to me, it's having like you have to have some kind of objective, like a main objective, what you want to get out of this thing, and then you have to do everything you possibly can to move that needle. And when I think about meetings, I go, for me, we're going to have 40 souls in that room. We have 40 people in that room that are investing their time. It's a captive audience, and so like I have too much respect for people's times to not go in there thoroughly prepared. And so we'll do whatever we have to do to try to get the most out of that meeting. I'm not saying it's not a circus. I'm not performing, but in some ways we're always performing, right? So a 6 a.m. meeting may need some music when they walk in. Other times they may need some time to pause and reflect after a tough day of classes. And I treat a meeting just like I treat a game, like where the meeting's over, you have to reflect on, how did it go? Where did we miss? And like you, Joe, sometimes you met you with your class. Sometimes you play and miss. Like sometimes you have a meeting where you hope it goes a direction and it doesn't. Those don't bother me. I get bothered when I wasn't prepared. If I'm leading the meeting, if I wasn't prepared, if I didn't do everything I possibly can to move the needle toward where the direction we want it to go. So you asked for a quick answer. I went long, but meetings fire me up because I hate the idea of death by meetings. It's like New Year's resolution. They get these bad raps because they're cliche-ish, but they're not if you do it in an appropriate way.
What's crucial to you in the first 5 minutes of a meeting?
That we set the tone and the direction for the meeting. So that can be, it's like speech 101, but it could be showing a little bit of a video. It could be some kind of question and answer. It could be trying to get some engagement. We're setting the tone, like right away in that first 5. And that tone could be playful. It could be laid back. I may go in there, have my feet kicked up that day. Very rarely will that happen, but we're going to set the tone that this meeting matters. That what we have coming. Like I'll say it to our guys all the time. I wouldn't call a meeting if I didn't think it was really important. We would do it by email or we just meet at the field. But if we're going to get in that room, we're going to try to get something out of it. So in that first 5, we're trying to set the tone for the day.
Chapter 6, enjoy the journey. How do you do that while still achieving and trying to achieve high success?
Well, I think the more you do it, the more you start really tapping into the world of high performance. I'm going to be a little bit redundant, but you have that vision and you align people behind it who are going to work tirelessly toward that mission, right? So now if I can surround myself with people, I think the pandemic, 2020, if it has done anything, it has exposed it. These things aren't new, like the problems and the obstacles that we face, but it just got heightened. And so what I've realized, this has been like a really crystal clear thing for me, is that I just want to be aligned with people that I love, that have similar values. And then like we're going to work tirelessly toward that goal. Like I just mentioned earlier, like I can't shut that off. Like I can't. And so, but if I'm surrounded by people who are on that same mission, then the results, I hate to say it, almost don't matter, but they don't. Like, only one person can win the World Series. Only one team can win the NBA championship or a Super Bowl. But if you are on this journey, like it's timeless. Like this year is going to give us a snapshot on how we did. We'll reflect. And then this group of people that we love, we're going to go back trying to do it again next year. So that's how I balance it. I don't minimize the results. That's not it. Like we're trying to win. But if we don't, then we're just going to recalibrate and try to figure out another way.
You said a word I wanted to ask you about: reflection. What's the best tool or practice you've found to reflect and self-evaluate?
So when I think of reflection, I think of kind of 3 buckets. One, you have, for me, and this is for me, it'd be reading and writing. So like my journey started off with reading. And then at some point I'm like, okay, now I have to have the courage to start putting my thoughts on paper to get some clarity, all the stuff that I'm learning. So that would be one. The second, and this is probably the most powerful for me now, like, so that, we all kind of have different buckets of our life. The second would be conversations and deep interactions with people who are that are thinking a little bit differently, that are passionate about their subject matter. And I think like having those conversations to me are just like, I just soak it up. So that's my reflection. And then the last would be, meditation, prayer, time in silence where you can actually think. Like I do it now on a rowing machine. So, even as I'm preparing for this interview, like I have some things in mind that you may ask, and then I go on that rower and I'm hitting the rower and things are starting to flow to me, and you kind of have some things going, and then that almost carries throughout the day. And then when you're laying in bed at night, something else pops into your head. So I think those three things, right? You got reading, writing, you have deep conversations, then you have some moment where you're with yourself and your thoughts.
Yeah, and you crushed the interview, man. Unbelievable conversation that we were able to record today. I want to go one more place before we go, but I think as on a meta level, I mean, how many conversations do you think we had in 2020?
I'm going to just go 20 and 20, I would say. And that would be like actual conversation, not text banter, but I would say probably close to 20.
And we've even hit record on a few of them, but this is the first one we've made public, and I'm so grateful for it. I know one of the pillars of your program and your life is gratitude, and I want to extend that for sure. I think there was a real interesting meta moment there where, I dreamed about some of the questions I was going to ask. I tweeted about that earlier. They just kind of float in the subconscious. There's a little bit of physical activity. It's just fascinating for people to hear all that, because it's not a linear process, Coach, but yet it showed up on game day. Anyone listening that enjoys growth is going to enjoy this conversation. We don't have necessarily a recipe for this to be successful. So I guess I just threw a lot at you there, but I'm just curious about your thoughts on that preparation process, not being, a script, but having an idea of where we're going.
Oh, without a doubt, Joe. I just think back to, I say it all the time, like I'm not a natural speaker. I'm not a natural writer. Like those things are really, really hard for me. So I have to prepare. So, you may hear the podcast go, oh, he kind of has, knows what he's talking about. Maybe that'd be nice if someone said that, but there has been a lot of thought and reflection that has gone in to this moment. So I say that because now as I get, somewhat higher platform, I'd always listen in and think, man, that person is just brilliant, or that person is sharp. But there's a lot of work going behind most of those conversations, right? Or that performance, or on game day. It's I think about when we used to take the field at Marietta and go out there to take IO. I always had this proud moment, like the first one, because I would go like, this whole crowd's watching this today, but they have no idea what went into this moment for us to be doing this right now. Like there has been so much that has gone on to this performance, this 10-minute performance that nobody else besides a select few of us understand. And the same thing goes with like this performance space. And when I say performance, that's writing, that's podcasting, that's doing whatever. Like there is so much that goes into those moments that I think most people don't give credit to.
I want you to write about that IO in your newsletter one day, and where people could find it at CoachMikeDeegan.com. I'm going to ask you off air about the nitty gritty of that. I love an IO, and for people that don't know baseball, I'm committing Mike publicly to write about that at some point. There's three places to really find Mike. At Coach Deegan on Twitter, which is a great Twitter follow, CoachMikeDeegan.com, and my recommendation, ClearLearn.com, and watch the trailer. See if you like what you see, and you're going to. Final question, Mike, is about competition. I don't want to let you off the hook without asking about it. Such a complicated word in some ways. On some level, it's simple, right? Woman versus woman, woman versus herself, right? We even learned about it in literature class. But it has a bad rap in some ways, at least from my outside perspective. It's like if we get too competitive, we're going to upset someone. There's winners, there's losers. I've had a complicated relationship with it in the last 10 or 15 years. Give me your thoughts on competition in closing, on its value, on its misunderstandings.
Well, I'm going to go very coach speak here, but I think you learn that competition is really against yourself. And so we have these outside forces, like, and for us, it's the 420 teams in Division III baseball, but those teams allow us to be our best, because if there is no competition, we'll never get to our best. Like if we just all we do is practice and we never see anything outside of our walls, like then That's all we'll ever be. So to me, it's a real battle of me versus me and us versus us. And so you think about the run your own race. So it's really, and I've also learned that competition isn't finalized on game day. Like Notre Dame and Clemson lost last night, but guess what? They'll be back training here in a few weeks. They'll be ready to go again. So competition just gives you a snapshot into where you are in that moment. And then it gives you some clarity as to where you want to go. And the more I do this, like I've had to realize in my own life, like I just mentioned 2007 is when I started this growth, right? And there's other people, I've been writing a newsletter for 6 years, pretty consistently. There are people that do it for a year and get much more shine, right? Or there's people that are half my age that are doing things and getting much more publicity. But that's okay. Like I'm running my own race. Like I'm in my own battle, and I'm more of a mutter. I take the dirt road. I got to plod my way to things. So that's like the competition out there makes you sharp, but really it's just how good can you become at whatever that is. And it doesn't have to be sports. That could be whatever fires you up. So I think embracing competition and not looking at it as an adversarial relationship, but more as a collaboration. It's me with you, not me versus you. I think that kind of frees you up to look at it as a positive and not a negative.
What a way to start 2021, my friend. I hope you enjoyed your time here. I sure as heck enjoyed having this conversation with you.
I did too, Joe. And we're friends, and I'd be remiss if I've told you from afar. I've watched, I listen, I read a ton, and you're as good as it gets, man. And that's not the friend in me. That's the person, a fan of greatness. So keep doing what you're doing. I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and we'll see how it goes.
Now I feel like I got to get on the treadmill after this. I get to get on the treadmill. He's Mike Deegan. You know where to find him.
This is the 1% Better Podcast.